Good day, it's December 15th, 2025. 9 days to go before Christmas and 16 days left to end of the year. I'm Sam Buban, welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Jessica Rolla. Welcome to this week's edition.
Judge James Boasberg, the chief federal judge in D.C., expanded his criminal investigation against the Trump administration after the federal judge did not receive sufficient information of the circumstances of who ignored his order to stop deporting Venezuelans to El Salvador under the use of the Alien Enemies Act. Judge Boasberg in March this year ordered the flights halted and those flights that are already in the air be turned around. The judge, after a decision by the Court of Appeals in favor of Judge Boasberg's criminal contempt court case, is now expanding the investigation and wants to know which of the officials of the Trump administration willfully ignored his order. Judge Boasberg ordered Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to appear in court and be questioned on the stand under oath for explanation as to who and why his order was ignored. The judge also wanted to question a former Justice Department immigration lawyer, Aris Ruvini, who was fired by Attorney General Pam Bondi, to also take the stand and testify. Aris Ruvini, who filed a whistleblower complaint after he was fired, said in a court filing that top officials at DOJ, after being informed of Judge Boasberg's verbal and written order, allegedly gave advice to DHS and DOJ lawyers to ignore Judge Boasberg's order and to proceed with the flights. Earlier before summer, The Pulse ran a news segment about the minutes that transpired in March regarding the timeline of the two airplanes that was subject to Judge Boasberg's order. Judge Boasberg, who gave a verbal order to DOJ lawyers in a court on a weekend because lawyers for Venezuelan detainees by ICE were being prepared to be flown out to a third country, to El Salvador, where the alleged Venezuelan gang members were not from, and judge agreed to hold an emergency hearing for relief. Judge Boasberg, after the verbal order, the court also posted the order on the online court's docket site. DOJ lawyers said they immediately relayed the order to DOJ and DHS. Judge Boasberg's order was, if the plane is already airborne, that they be turned around. When his order was ignored, he held an immediate hearing the following Monday for DOJ and DHS to explain and focus on the timeline of his order and the arrival of the two planes in El Salvador. Now, the judge's interest is to know who were involved in ignoring his order and face criminal contempt investigation. Former DOJ lawyer Aris Ruvini said the second top DOJ official, Emil Bovee, who Trump later appointed as a Court of Appeals judge, allegedly gave the advice to ignore Judge Boasberg's order. The third top DOJ official, another former Trump lawyer, Todd Blanche, could possibly be implicated.
The government premium subsidy under the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, is set to expire on December 31st, 2025, unless Congress will extend the coverage by a new bill that must pass in both chambers. If you recall, the longest government shutdown that lasted almost 7 weeks had something to do with the healthcare subsidy under Obamacare that Democrats were fighting for to protect their constituents. This issue of continuing subsidy under the Obamacare is very popular to American voters, even in Republican-held states. The 6 Democrats in the U.S. Senate voting on a short-term spending bill with the Republicans in order to reopen the government before Thanksgiving holidays and Christmas, and such short-term continuing resolution for government spending is set to expire after January 6 next year, less than a month from now. But what it appears right now is that the Senate majority is expressing that it will not extend the subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, which pays for part of the premium Americans buy in the government-sponsored insurance marketplace. If the subsidies will not be extended, it would be a significant increase in premium Americans will have to pay for their health insurance. So depending on the policy specifics, the premium increase can range from 26% to 78% increase in premium to Americans who purchased private insurance. Such increase will be devastating financially to millions of Americans who had enjoyed subsidized portion of their premium. Many ordinary people interviewed by different media outlets are saying they will be priced out of the health insurance market and will go without insurance as they won't be able to afford one. The situation will endanger millions of lives if lawmakers allow this to happen. Although very few Republican members of Congress had sounded off their concerns, it is the Democrats in Congress that have been loud about wanting to continue the subsidy program. So this comes at a time when another 100 million will lose their Medicaid coverage because of the new work requirements for most of those who will be receiving Medicaid. And that's because of more than $800 billion in Medicaid funding cuts for the next 10 years, beginning next year when Medicaid funding is already reduced by about $88 billion.
As the Democratic Party continued to gain traction all over the country, including in states that are traditionally held by Republicans, but Democrats are overperforming in special elections in those red districts. One of the rising stars in the Democratic Party, who represents Texas Congressional District 30, Jasmine Crockett, has announced that she is running for the U.S. Senate in the midterm election to oppose incumbent Senator John Cornyn. Both Republicans and Democrats will have a crowded primary election. Unless some Democrats will withdraw in favor of Crockett, the Republican will have either Senator Cornyn or State Attorney General Paxton as her opponents in the general election. Jasmine Crockett had demonstrated herself as a fearless fighter in the rule of law in her performance as a member of the House Oversight Committee. She methodically and fearlessly questions Trump's administration officials, even justices of the Supreme Court, during committee hearings that earned her the anger of President Trump. But she has never backed down on her duties and principles.
In a report from the news outlet Politico, President Trump publicly announced that the U.S. had seized an oil tanker that Trump described as very large, an escalation on the administration's effort to punish a South American country under President Nicolas Maduro. Attorney General Pam Bondi acknowledged in a post on her X account that the FBI, Homeland Security Investigations, and the Coast Guard executed the seizure warrant on the vessel, which was used to transport sanctioned oil from Iran and Venezuela. The vessel that was seized was named Skipper, registered to Triton Navigation based on Marshall Islands. Triton Navigation has been listed by the U.S. Department of Treasury as one of the shipping companies critical to the oil smuggling network supporting Iran and Hezbollah. With the U.S. sanctions on Venezuela for years, most of Venezuela's oil production goes to China. During the Biden administration, and because of the Ukraine invasion by Russia and sanctions was placed on Russia, the U.S. did a partial lifting of sanctions on Venezuela. Venezuela is able to sell oil to the U.S. to contribute to availability of oil for the U.S. to replace Russian oil. So since then, Chevron is the only U.S. petroleum company allowed to do business with Venezuela. Similarly, other European countries had been seizing oil tankers containing sanctioned Russian oil.
In our world news, Syria celebrates the one-year anniversary of the end of the Assad regime. Reuters reported that as the divided country tries to restore stability and heal from years of conflict, Syrians celebrated the first anniversary of the downfall of Bashar al-Assad and his autocratic rule with joy in major towns on Monday. In front of a sizable gathering of supporters, the new leader, President Ahmed al-Sharaa, declared that his administration had laid out a clear vision for a new Syria as a state that looks forward towards a promising future and describe it as an historic departure from the dark chapter. Assad departed Syria for Russia a year ago as Sharaa's rebels seized Damascus after an 8-day assault throughout the country, ending his control for more than 13 years after an uprising devolved into a terrible civil war. We started loving this country, says the Aleppo resident. Al-Sharaa began Monday with dawn prayers at Damascus Umayyad Mosque, clad in the military fatigues he wore as leader of the former Al-Qaeda rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a uniform he has since replaced with dark clothes of presidential office. He promised to construct a just and strong Syria, according to the state news agency SANA, S-A-N-A. In Aleppo, the first major city to fall into Sharaa's forces last year, cars paraded through the streets, blasting their horns and flying Syria's new flag. We began to love the country. We didn't love the nations before. We tried to get away from it, said Mohammed Karam Hamani, an Aleppo local. Sharaa has brought about a significant reforms that have changed Syria's foreign relations. He has established contacts with the United governments, gained support from the Gulf Arab governments and Turkey, and shifted away from Assad's alliance with Iran and Russia. Western sanctions, which were crippling, had been substantially eased. He has promised to replace Assad's ruthless police state with a more inclusive and equitable system. However, hundreds of the people had been slain in a sectarian violence, generating additional displacements and fueling mistrust among minorities in Sharaa's government as he battles to reestablish Damascus' authority throughout Syria. The Kurdish-led administration in the northeast has banned gatherings or celebrations on security grounds, alleging heightened activity by terror cells looking to take advantage of the occasion. It congratulated Syrians on the anniversary. Kurdish-led administration has sought to protect its regional autonomy, while in the south, some Druze, followers of the minority sect that is an offshoot of Islam, have demanded independence in the southern province of Sueda, after hundreds were killed in deadly clashes with government forces in July. Members of the Alawite minority of Syria, the Assad families dominated the country for 54 years. Since 2011, the Syrian conflict has killed hundreds of thousands of people, displaced millions more, and forced about 5 million into neighboring countries as refugees. Since Assad was overthrown, some 1.2 million refugees and 1.9 million internally displaced persons have returned home, according to the UN Refugee Agency on Monday. However, a drop in international financing may discourage others.
Thailand, in coordination with its Southeast Asian neighbors, continue its crackdown on scam farms, or scam villages, in the borders of Thailand and Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. Although similar crackdowns of these scam factories were started in the Philippines, as their government did serious investigations of Philippine overseas gaming operators, or POGOs, that the Philippines discovered that these are not only illegal gambling, but a violent slave trade where those lured by ads for lucrative jobs were actually forced to work as scammers online and by phone. and murders were perpetrated. In Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos, the era of scam state is ending. Pressure from China has made these 4 countries in Asia to cooperate with China to end these illegal, multi-billion-dollars-a-year enterprise. China wanted the leaders and owners of these scam farms, who are also Chinese nationals, to be extradited to China because most of the victims were themselves Chinese citizens. So at least 5 big operators had already been turned over to China, facing conviction that can carry capital punishment. So in a report from The Guardian, on their account, during these crackdowns, a particular business park had been emptying out for days before the explosions. So when the bombs detonated, they destroyed echoing, multi-cuisine eating halls, and vacant office buildings. A 4-story hospital, quiet karaoke centers, empty gyms, and dorm rooms were all destroyed by dynamite. Press announcements from the junta in Myanmar announced the closure of KK Park, one of the most notorious scam centers in Southeast Asia. Tens of thousands of people had been detained in the institution and forced to persistently scam people worldwide. It is now being leveled piece by piece. However, the park operators had long since left. They were reportedly busy relocating after learning of an impending raid. Approximately 2,000 workers had been arrested, while another 1,000 had been able to escape across the border. So, however, up to 20,000 workers who were probably abused and trafficked had vanished. Scam centers like KK Park have continued to flourish away from the junta cameras. Experts claim that we are nearing the period of the scam state because the multi-billion-dollar global scam industry has become so monolithic. Similar to the narco state, the term describes nations where an illegal industry has permeated legitimate institutions, changing the economy, corrupting governments, and making the state dependent on an illicit network. The raids on KK Park were the latest in a string of high-profile crackdowns on scam centers throughout Southeast Asia. However, regional observers argue that they are primarily performative or target middling players akin to political theater by officials under international pressure to crack down on them. But they have little interest in dismantling a phenomenally profitable sector. It's a way of playing whack-a-mole where you don't want to hit a mole, says Jacob Sims, a visiting fellow at Harvard University, Asia Center and expert on transnational and cybercrime in the Mekong. According to Sims, during the last 5 years, scamming has evolved from small online fraud rings into an industrial-scale political economy. In terms of gross domestic product, or GDP, it's the dominant economic engine for the entire Mekong sub-region, he elaborates. And that means that it's one of the dominant, if not the most dominant, political engine. In less than a decade, the business has transformed from a world of misspelled emails and implausible Nigerian princes to a large, sophisticated structure that generates tens of billions of dollars from victims all over the world. Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we will be joined by a candidate for the Nevada State Assembly for an interview. Please stay with us.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. With us now is Maria Teresa Hank, who is running for Speaker Yeager's seat. Speaker Yeager is not running for re-election in next year's midterm. Ms. Hank, thank you for joining us here at The Pulse.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure having you here. Before I go into the specific questions, please tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to be in this space today. My name is Maria Teresa Hank. I was born in the Philippine Islands in Olongapo, and my family's from Cavite. I am a 36-year Transport Workers Union member, union activist. I've raised my sons as a single mom in District 9 and in the area, and I've spent my life and decades dedicating it to community service and advocating for families here in our state.
It's quite a challenge as raising a child as a single mom, you know.
Where is Assembly District 9? Give our viewers an idea where it is.
Assembly District 9 is on the southwest side of town. It's a growing, vibrant community of diverse cultures. We do have a very strong AA-NHPI community, but we have seniors, we have young families, and just people that want to really thrive and survive in that area.
And you're a newcomer in politics. What motivated you to run, and when did you make that decision to run for an office and be a public servant?
What motivated me to run is I graduated from UNLV as a political science major. I have graduated from the AFL-CIO labor candidate training, as well as the Emerge training, which is for women, particularly women of color, to run in politics and have a good foundation to do that. But I saw through my advocacy and running a piece of legislation in this last legislative session called KingCare, which is Assembly Bill 112 with Assemblymember Yui Win, how important our voices are up in Carson City, and that our district and Nevada needs a strong voice.
What issues in Nevada or in your district is important for you to address through the legislature?
Wow, from what I'm hearing from everybody, from my seniors, from people, younger generations of people, affordability. People are just surviving right now. And as a diabetic, as someone who has severe asthma, the medical costs. I spent $50 last week on an inhaler, and one of my seniors who's on Social Security getting Medicaid spent $390 on that same inhaler. And I want to continue working on KingCare. And it's a bill where workers should not have to be penalized for calling in sick to care for their sick family members in illness, injury, or doctor's appointment, and not have to have repercussions from their employers for doing that. Many of us care for our generations of families in one household. I'm in the sandwich generation. I have adult children living with me. I just lost my elderly mother, and so I know what it's like to struggle and have to have one paycheck stretch.
I could imagine.
And if elected to the Assembly, what committees would you prefer to be a member of?
I would love to be on Commerce and Labor and Health and Human Services. Commerce and Labor would just be an easy one because I have such a strong union background and have been advocating and working for protecting good jobs here in Nevada for a long time. And of course, just with my growing health issues as an older person, I see how important it is to make sure that we have those protections for everybody in our community.
What have you been hearing from the people in your district about the situation, the economic situation they're in? Yeah.
Wow, it's very discouraging right now. Kids my children's age can't afford to move out. Affordability and accessibility are huge. And I don't think that those are things that we should have to be worrying about. We should be able to have access to good, safe homes. People are worrying about education. My seniors are worried about how they're going to make it when their cost of living is not going up and it's not rising with the actual cost of living. And so I'm just really hearing that people are stressed. I have a coworker that's actually selling his plasma to make ends meet, and he works double shifts.
Oh my goodness.
And that's just not right.
Yeah, and I know that even if you're elected to the legislature, yeah, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, there's a lot of challenges, especially with there's so many funding cutbacks from this administration.
Yes.
Like we're bound to lose like the estimate is like 100,000 will fall off Medicaid, and because of the new job requirement. But good thing is, you'll probably not be in the session until like January 2027. So.
Correct. But I do look forward to, continuing my bipartisan work. That's one thing that I was very proud
That's
of with
what's needed,
the
yeah.
Assembly Bill 112. Between my TWU state conference and working with CWA Local 9413 and Assembly Member Yui Win, we were able to get that bill passed bipartisan through the Assembly as well as the Senate. And unfortunately, it got vetoed by the governor at the last minute. But I am very proud of the fact of being able to reach across the aisle and just talk to people. I think that's where the disconnect in politics right now is people are being talked at and not being talked with.
Yes, you're right, And luckily, Jessica, I've observed this. I did also some reaching out to our legislatures at the Capitol. The lawmakers that we have, it's not as toxic as what is out there in Congress. They work out. It's most of the legislations that pass through our state legislature are bipartisan. Okay, they all know and recognize what is good for their constituents. So, well, I'm glad you're running for that. It's an open seat.
Yes.
So, and you don't know yet who else are running.
I heard you do have a competitor, but I'm all about protecting good union jobs here in our state and finding new ways of bringing jobs to our state and protecting our families and making sure we have strong schools. And like I said, I've been out in the community talking to different groups and talking to different people and really trying to get my pulse on our community.
That's good.
It's wonderful. Well, we are almost out of time for this broadcast. So last words from you, Teresa, to the voters of Assembly District 9?
I'm Maria Teresa Hank, and I just am thankful that I have the opportunity to run for this position. I look forward to being out in the community, and if you see me out there, let's have conversations, because I really think that's what we need to be doing more of, is talking with each other and learning about one another, and I look forward to representing Assembly District 9.
We will leave it at that. Maria Teresa Hank, candidate for Nevada State Assembly, District 9. Thank you for talking to us today.
Salamat po.
And I'm sure it's not going to be the last.
Yes, I hope not.
And to our viewers, please join us again next week for a new edition here at The Pulse. This is Jessica Rolla. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Sam Buban. God bless your week.